I am Brandon Kilburn, and I teach strategy and entrepreneurship here at UT Martin. For a while, I was kind of the lone guy in both of those. I am more strategy-oriented as far as research and that type of stuff goes, but I love the entrepreneurship class. I teach kind of the intro to entrepreneurship, which is, I think we have four classes, I believe, in entrepreneurship. I teach the intro class where you actually go through and you develop the business plan in that class from beginning to end. In that class, everybody develops a plan. And so what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a hybrid, actually, more so from my strategy side that ties into the entrepreneurship side. And so I'm kind of going to merge both of those together. This is by no means a canned presentation. When Dr. Cates asked me if I wanted to come in and do this, I said, sure. And then I kind of got to thinking about, okay, what I need to do. I don't really have anything that's canned for a broad audience. Most of my students are in a finite box, you might say. They're in there to get that credit. They're business majors, and so I deal a lot of times with that narrow focus because we can. So Dr. Cates was kind of going through, the diverse group of people that these sessions have, and so I thought, well, this is going to be kind of fun. It'll be a kind of a challenge to me to step outside of that same old routine, and so I started kind of putting this stuff together. And what I really got a kick out of was when I came in, I got your homework for session 3, and I assume this is session 3, right? So this was kind of the preset subject matter, I guess, that you needed to look at. And as I went through it, it kind of made me feel good because we're going to talk about how the company makes money. We're going to go heavily into pricing and cost. And we're going to go into that from a strategy side. So I go through this stuff pretty much semester after semester, but never really in this kind of detail. And that's kind of what I've done is I've melded the two classes together in a practical sense. And I hope that I don't get too abstract, for one. If I do, just stop me. I'll go back and get on target. But I also hope that I can bring it into maybe show you a different light of just how to approach things differently. Outside of the box, and even in the end, that's one of the things, even with business. One of my last slides that we'll discuss really deals with getting outside of the box, even within whatever box you're building right now. Don't pigeonhole yourself to that box. So we're going to look at environmental assessment, which ties heavy into my strategy stuff. All those in my class right now, and he's getting a real good dose of this. But I'm not going to pick on y'all though. Okay. Environmental assessment of profit potential. So typically, when we're thinking about assessing environment, we're thinking about the company and all these things. But I wanted to add this last little caption here is profit potential, which is kind of what we're really assessing. That's the whole purpose of why we assess. If you go through most of the literature and the text, it really doesn't tone it down that finite. But we're going to talk about some of the generic stuff that I'll try not to get so abstract, but Aldo's already seen this in class. The environments, okay? You have the external macro side. You have the external micro side. That should say micro, that's a typo. And then you have the internal environment. So if we're going through all right, how many of you have dealt with or heard of or are familiar with a SWOT analysis? Show of hands. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That is probably the most simplified, common, basic, foundational tool for assessing a business environment. So you go through and you assess the strengths, weaknesses of the company, the opportunities and threats. And we're going to get into my pet peeve about the SWOT analysis that Aldo's already heard about. But in that, and again, this is a typo. This should say micro. I'll be sending these slides out if you would like them afterwards, and you can access those, I guess, through Facebook. So you start with the macro side, which is the global environment. That's the overarching environment that imposes itself on everything. That's politics, that's society, that's technology, that's economics in a global sense. So world politics, different social environments, technology just in general, and economics in a global sense. It's not necessarily limited to those. I'm sure if you did some, because if you go in and you look at the research, some folks will take some of that out and call it a different term, or some folks will add one or two. No matter what, this is what I tell my classes. Basic sense, if you start with just those and you start honing it down, that's going to catch a lot of stuff. As far as if you want to go further and fine-tooth it, that's awesome. That's great. But, at least a starting point, I like the acronym's PEST. Aldo's going to see that on an exam next week. PEST, politics, economic, social, technological environment. I like it because it's simple. You can get more in depth if you would like, or you can keep it at that. But that's my foundation for it. Let's look at the external environment. And then within that, you work your way down to the external micro side. And the term external means external to the company. That's how we dictate whether it's external or internal. If it's outside of the company, it's external. So the micro side, not macro, is the industry itself within which we operate. That is our competition, our customers, our suppliers, our distribution, anything that falls inside the industry as an environmental pressure that we deal with, okay? And so we get into that, and you could add more to this as well. There are other things inside that micro environment, but we're talking at a level lower than just general politics, technology, society, economics, things like that. We want to hone it down here to the industry itself, because in the internal side, that's where the pressures come from. This imposes itself on this, and this imposes itself on the company. And within that, that's where we have to operate. We have to operate within that environment. And depending on the company, and this gets into schools of thought and the evolution really of strategic management, but original thought was that the environment puts pressure on the company, and the company has to operate based on what the environment tells the company to do. And over the years, as this has evolved, you had another school of thought that said, no, we have companies that can come in and change the environment, that can cause total shifts, revolutionary companies. And so then you have that mindset that, well, the industry or the company can impose itself on the industry. Walmart's a great example. When I was a kid, Walmart was not the giant that it is now, and the retail outlets were abundant. And then the giant kind of comes on and changes the whole environment. A lot of companies went out of business. You can't go, just downtown like my grandparents did when they were coming up and do all your shopping there in the little town of 1,500 people or whatever. Then the company changed the environment, changed retail. And so you can take that, and understand where you kind of have some give and take. And that's kind of where we're at these days with strategy, is that the environment, regardless, still puts pressure on companies. So you can't say that every company is going to change the environment, but you have to also understand that whatever the company, it can, it can happen. It's possible. And so we get through the, again, SWOT. You have your opportunities and threats in the external side, outside of the company. And then we look at the company resources, the company strategies, and the things that are developed within the company. And that's where our strengths and our weaknesses come from. Wrong computer. Here we go. Assessment of the competitive environment. These are just a few things that I borrowed from Heinz Weyrich, his original article back in '82. Assessment of the competitive environment. You need to identify, as you work your way through, what factors are key to success. And that sounds easy until you try to do it, and then there could be hidden things. We're going to talk about what you look for, how you uncover those. What are the importance of these factors? We're going to go through a little bitty exercise as far as you determining what might be important to you with your company in terms of the environment, and then ultimately you assess the company's position within that environment after ranking those things. Okay. My pet peeve, and I think I told you folks earlier that I have a pet peeve about the SWOT analysis. Everybody throws that term around, SWOT, and then so many times my students go in and they start their reports or their papers with these are the strengths, these are the weaknesses, and then they go into opportunities and threats, because that's the acronym that everybody uses. Nobody talks about a TOWS analysis. TOWS. I guess SWOT caught back in the 80s because it sounds better. That's the only reason that I can think that this acronym stuck. And in that, it forces people to go upstream a lot of times. And when I say going upstream, I mean against the grain. If you try to go and start an assessment of a company, and you start with the strengths and weaknesses of the company, if you start with the internal, I'm not going to say you're not going to get anywhere, but where you're going to get is back to the external. I cannot know where my strengths and weaknesses lie if I don't know what the environment's doing. If that makes any sense at all. I have a finite environment. We're going to talk a little bit about how you might weight that in a second in an exercise. But I have a finite environment within which I can operate. And I have to know what technology's doing, what society's doing, what economic situation is out there before I can determine where my strengths or my weaknesses may lie. If I don't have that, if I don't have an understanding of what's going on here and here, then how can I know that my company's strong? Let's say, for instance, I just invested, $5 million in this new technology last year, and it was cutting edge last year, because I always like to pick on technology. It's the easiest example to throw out there. So I invested $5 million last year. And then this year, just like technology is, all of a sudden, something twice as good comes out for half the price. So now where am I? I've got a large sunk cost in a non-liquid fixed asset. Can I turn around and spend another $2.5 million to get that new one this year? Probably not, because I'm leveraged as far as I can. But if I don't know what's going on with that external environment, with that shift and change in technology, then I'm going to think that I'm very strong, right? So I have to go back and look and see where the changes lie. And that's what we're kind of going to talk about. I just wanted to go through that. Every class, every lecture that I discuss a SWOT analysis, I always make sure to go through that, because I hate to see students go through that work and then really have to just start over. And the same way with you folks, it's, everybody can get caught up into that, but if you start right, it'll just save you a lot of time as far as environmental assessment. All right, so we look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and this kind of brings it home now to the homework that you guys had, and the topic, which is how to make money. And so this is kind of where I'm getting outside of my typical classroom lecture, I guess you might say, because we throw that environmental analysis with a cost revenue focus, where we're looking at cost potential and revenue potential. That's where we're actually looking for the money. Where is the money? So if I'm going through an environmental assessment on the external side, that mindset of external, I'm looking for opportunities and threats. What actually are the opportunities? What actually are the threats? What's really, when you boil it all down, what are we really looking for? Threats can come in cost potential, and opportunities can come in revenue potential. And so, for instance, if we go back to the business strategy class that I teach, I don't have my students go through and do that cost potential, revenue potential. I get the report and it says these are our opportunities based on all these different activities that they found, all the research that they've done on a given company, and then here are the threats on a given company. But when we boil it all down, and this is where we get into, looking for these margins, trying to find where the money actually is when we call something a threat, then what we're usually looking at in a lot of senses is some kind of cost that we're going to incur, some kind of barrier. That's why we call it a threat. And in business, it could be a barrier that just totally keeps us out of the market. But a lot of these market barriers come because the cost is so high to get into markets. Again, if you go through and you just take it, and what's done kind of at a normal sense of saying this is an opportunity, this is a threat, take it that one extra level, and that's really what I wanted to get at here, is through this analysis, we're turning over rocks really and saying this is a potential cost or this is a potential revenue. And when we look at our strengths and our weaknesses, the same thing. A strength is hopefully some potential revenue that comes from some type of resource that we have, something that's unique to our company. And the weakness would be the potential cost that we could incur based on, a lot of times, it's a lack of a resource. And so, with a SWOT analysis, taking it to that next level and saying, okay, this is a strength because of maybe it's a cost or that we're reducing, or it's a weakness because of revenue that we're getting. That tells us kind of where the money is. It's really a way to take just a normal SWOT analysis and break it out and actually start looking at that potential, which if these exceed these, then this is not going to be good. Okay? And that's either way. And you can even cross it over depending on how much these are. Now, hopefully what we're going to see is that we have a lot more of that than this, and this goes up. In developing a business, that's the key to a lot of it too, is turning over rocks, really looking, trying to find it. With a lot of these companies, you start out where this may be slim, but over time you turn over enough rocks and boom, you may find it. It could be there. And this is where, like I said, I'm stepping out from what I normally do and looking at it in a different light to fit kind of what we're looking at here is, turning rocks over and looking at the potential that we actually have. And if we don't see it, then we can keep turning over rocks until we finally get it, and maybe we'll find it. I'm going to keep hitting this key until it pops off, I guess. External global forces. So we're starting back with that macro environment where politics, society, economics, and technology. This is just a little exercise when we get into turning over those rocks and we're assessing, cost versus revenue, trying to look for those opportunities and hopefully, reduce those threats. Have to understand that that we have X amount of environmental pressure that we deal with. And it can come, again, if we're willing to just narrow it down and say this is what we're going to look at and we're going to define this as our external macro boundary, it's not always going to apply itself to our company equally. We got, I don't know how many different businesses you folks have in here that you're working on, but everybody's gonna have a different weighted distribution. Society's gonna impose itself on some businesses very heavily and others maybe not so much. Politics, same thing. It can really weigh on certain businesses, and in other businesses, at certain times it may not be a big issue. These days, who knows? Politics are kind of up in the air, but it's really heavy for a lot of companies right now. So it's not static by any means. The weighted distribution of these can go up and vary as it goes. Economics, technology, and other. If I'm in a technology firm, I don't know if anybody in here is in a technology firm, but yeah, that's going to carry more weight than some of this stuff, more than likely. Going back to the static versus dynamic, technology's crept its way into a lot of businesses though that honestly I never really thought about. Going back to farming right here, the Minecraft farming challenge. Farming's a whole lot different than when I was a kid, that's for sure. Know a lot of farmers who just read the newspaper on a tractor now because it's all GPS. All they worry about is calibration. And, when I was a kid, it wasn't that way. You had to keep it in a straight row or you'd get in trouble, pretty much. But, the pressure that these forces put on companies, you have to understand they're not equal. And when you're looking for, these cost versus revenue factors, you kind of have to understand how they affect the company. Again, what's important to you really is the question. What do you think is important to your company? You can take some time, and sit down and say, all right, really, what are the forces? Is it politics? Is that you can grade these out and rank order 1, 2, 3, 4, or you could go in and try to determine, 10%, 20%, 60%, whatever. And then understand that that's going to change, and that's what we're really going to get into here in a bit, talking about environments. When you hear folks talk about environments, you hear words like change, shift, fluctuation, dynamic, volatility, cyclical. How do you cope? How do you cope with shifts in politics, economics, technology, society, all these forces, again, that, if you go through it and you take that time that you assigned a weighting to, understanding that it's never the same. Today it could be technology is 75% of my problem, and next year it may be 10% of my problem. Or it may be 75% of my opportunity. Next year it may be 5% of my opportunity. Things change. So how do we cope? And I guess that's the other thing I wanted to drive home. We just continue to stay with it. In my business policy class, You know, we do one SWOT analysis that goes through and it stops at this is the student's making a recommendation. And it's a shortfall just because we don't have the opportunity to always tell them they won't come back next semester. We do it all over again. But, you know, it's a shortfall in the sense that you don't get to really practice it because you got to start all over. It can't stop. That's another, and I guess from academia, because there's really no way to continue, you know, students graduate in 4 years, there's no way to continue that process. So it's, you know, the mindset is, okay, we get this done and it's over. But in all actuality, environments are constantly shifting. And, you know, that persistence, that continuation, that peripheral vision is what can make or break a company, is what can make the difference. You see, you know, if we go back in retail, again, when I was a kid, you could actually go, you know, downtown. I'm from a small town, about 1,500 people. You could go downtown and you could buy pretty much anything you needed. And then, you know, Walmart came in, but I remember Walmart still going there when I was a kid, and Walmart and Ben Franklin and Fred's and all these companies were about the same size at the time. And then, you know, the environment starts to change. And, you know, the one that really did well was the one that picked up on the change. And that's kind of what happens, is that continuation. So what do? How do we cope with that? What's the process? We're constantly scanning. We don't let up. We scan into perpetuity. We don't let up. We always, you know, have to be aware. If you get in a static position, at that point you become a little bit vulnerable for competition, for environmental shifts, for whatever. And we'll talk about, you know, how you can combat that by getting outside the box in just a bit. But we scan, we forecast, basically plan to implement whatever. We realize the strategy, or we realize the environment, whatever it is. We make changes, we adapt, we carry on that process, and then we just repeat. Once we adapt, we're back to that scanning. Because if we stop here again, then we're a sitting duck. Now we could last forever and get lucky and nothing ever affect the company, but you see companies go in and you see companies go out, and a lot of times it's because they've become complacent. They're satisfied with where they're at, they're making good money, and then you see the competition is already looking for a way to get around. And in that, again, you can use that scanning to turn over the rocks, and you can go through it again with the SWOT methodology. Look at the external environment, macro side, micro side, internal, and you're looking for, you know, new ways. If you're already in business, you're looking for new ways to create profit or to reduce cost. Either way, if we can reduce the cost, we're going to increase our margin. If we increase our profit, we're going to increase our margin. And we're constantly just using that analysis, that scanning, turn over those rocks and see if there's some more margin under one of those rocks. And here's where I get into scanning and getting outside the box, even with our scanning, with our mentality. Because I was thinking about this. It's been a real good exercise for me. I was just thinking about businesses that I've been familiar with and how a number of those businesses have been successful in their secondary business ventures and have seen their primary business ventures go to the wayside. I was thinking about a friend of mine who had a family business for a long time, and then in the mid-90s they started another secondary, and that became their primary, and they're not even in the primary business. Now the primary business made a lot of money over a couple decades period, but the margins went away, the environment changed, and that's exactly what happened. But in the meantime, they got outside of the boundaries. So not getting trapped in the box, scanning with a peripheral vision. So not just looking at the same things over and over and over, but as you approach with that new step, with that, when you go back to the top and you make that loop and you start over, trying to clear the mind. That's why a lot of, you see a lot of young folks get into business and do well, because they're not burdened by their memory, because it's all fresh and new. So they see a different playing field. They're not playing the game from 1984. They're playing the game from 2017, which is a total different ball game. And and it helps young folks a lot of times to go out there that are inexperienced. A lot of times it helps to hire young folks that are inexperienced. So we're looking for, more money, basically. Again, we're turning over more rocks. We're opening our mindset. So in the scanning, we're going to start with contingencies as one necessary action. These are two actions here. We're always planning. We're always working on our standard strategy. We always want to improve on what we've already done. Okay. So I'm not saying we're ditching, by getting out of the box, we're not ditching what we've been working on for 10, 15, 20 years, or could be 3 months and just getting going. I'm not saying we're ditching that, but I am saying that we're also starting to get outside a little bit, and we are going to start developing some contingency plans in case we have environmental shifts. The process for getting outside of the box, again, it seems it's almost oversimplified. Do you do it with a every 6-month mindset? Do you do it with an annual mindset? Do you do it every 5 years? It just depends on the business. It can be fine to kind of go with what you have for a certain point, and not get totally bogged down in chasing some kind of rabbit as well. There's that happy medium that's, in reality, that's what makes it difficult. I mean, that's the challenge, is finding that balance. And man, I got my day to day. I've got this good thing. I got to take care of this without, if you run off in too many tangents, then you'll overexert yourself. So it's looking for that right opportunity. So for one, we stay with our strategy, but we always have to have contingencies. If there's an environmental shift, if something's not going like we think it's going to go, which most of the time that is a possibility, then we not only do we develop our strategy, but we think about alternatives that we could fall back on. Okay? For instance, politics. Things are changing. We're in the midst of as much change as we've seen in a long time. We need to be thinking about growth versus stability as either being an option. Things could go in our favor, or things could go down. We almost need to have some kind of plan either way in business. Just if these shifts affect us one way or another. We may think, if we're thinking growth as our primary option, then we need to be thinking about, okay, what's my stability strategy if something happens? If we're thinking stability, then we might need to be thinking, okay, what if the market takes off? I need to be poised and ready to take advantage. Long-term versus short-term orientation. That's another thing with strategy. Strategy really needs to be developed with a certain amount of time, for it to play out. But what amount of time is right for my company? And if so, then we need to, if we're going to consider that our short term is our annual, then we need to be thinking 5 years as well. If our short term is 6 months, then we need to be thinking year and a half, 2 years, whatever. How this thing's going to evolve, and always be prepared. So that's really what these contingencies are. If you don't have alternatives with your strategy, and as you develop whatever the business is, then that's a question you need to ask yourself. What are my alternatives? What would I do in case we shift from this to this? All right, now, there's that. That's my contingency. That's my safety net that I hope to create for myself. Now, here's where I get into turning over more of those rocks. And I'm really stepping even on the other side of my safety net here. I'm thinking, okay, what else is out there? What fits? I like synergistic options. I love that. A lot of companies are very successful because they can find things that fit with what they're already doing and take advantage of totally new markets because it fits with their company. And the company that I was thinking about earlier, it was my friend's dad's company, and the primary business was automotive, and they stayed in that business. They made a lot of money over about 25 years, enough money that they decided, and they could afford to without, they had the cash to back it up. We'll start another business within kind of the racing area. And then the automotive side kind of went down, and then the racing part took over. And that's the only reason they're really still in business today, is because they saw that synergistic core business that linked up to there. What are complementary options? What are options out there that you could do that would be complementary to your business? Are those out there? If there are complementary business options that you could do, then why not you do it instead of somebody else, right? Why not you take advantage of that profit margins that's out there, as opposed to somebody else coming in and starting the exact same business? And that ties into new markets. You could even get into new industries. Now, we're not talking about, diversification or a conglomerate here. We're talking about, again, what fits within, is there something that fits within what I do that I could do that would be synergistic? What's out there? Again, while you're asking yourself, what are my alternatives? Always keep that in the back of your mind. What are the possibilities? Because the second business may be bigger than the first business. And the third business may be bigger than the second, and the fourth may be bigger than the third, and so on and so forth. It also may be the only thing that keeps you in business during, an environmental shift. Again, I'm not talking about a conglomerate, but I am talking about keeping that peripheral vision and understanding that, if I am here and the environment shifts, then I may suffer as a result of the environment imposing its pressure on me and my business. Which again, tying it all back, that environment imposing that pressure through me having to lower my prices and my costs going up. And eventually, if it goes like this, then it's kind of game over. I'm going to turn it over to my wife, Ashley Kilper, who is a marketing professor, and she's going to go through the same type stuff, except scale it down really more toward that micro environment, who the target is.
Dr. Kilburn,
Yes,
while
ma'am.
she's getting set up, we have a member of our audience today that saw that synergetic options, complementary options in her business, and that's Dr. Debbie Reynolds. She started out against the competition. There's 3 veterinarian services in Whitley County, standing with their own group, all buildings, and it's entities. She started something different. It's a mobile.
She has a van.
She has a van. She cut down that overhead.
That's right.
Not only that, then she saw a niche that fit complementary what she was doing, and that is the holistic portion of pet care. This is a big market. It's new to Whitley County. Of the 3 other veterinarians in town, or in the county, I have none of this where you're doing that, I don't think, in any form. So, she sort of took that last part of your slide there and said, this makes sense.
Yeah, Dr. Debbie, you took care of our cat back in the day. Beloved cat, Bella, yeah.
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 Yeah, I saw a lot of the clinics though. I did relief work for a lot of clinics, and I saw time and time again people that were ready to retire and their exit strategy does not work. They could not sell their clinic, and I mean,
Because of the overhead.
Yeah, I'm just going to put it in the park and go in the house.
Right.
Right.
You can start delivering flowers or something.
Good.
So is that something that you had seen before? Like,
Well,
is that something that, is in urban environments? Is that something?
Two of my colleagues I went to vet school with. One's got a mobile vet in Memphis, and one has the visiting vet in Knoxville. One's a mobile vet, and one's a house call vet. So I went with them, and then decided the house call vet was more what I was thinking of, and it was just. And the mobile vet, she had $500,000 in her vehicle. Like, she can do surgery in there or take radiographs, but I don't know, it made me a nervous wreck. Plus, she's in Memphis, and what if she has a flat tire or someone hits her or the engine goes bad? I mean, it just didn't seem
The
like a
overhead of
great
that
idea.
vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do as far as surgery or things like that? Do you just do referral?
Well, I did do surgery one day a week, and then I just got too busy to do that. So now I do referral. Yeah, I've got a doctor I work with, and I fill in for him when he's gone. He does my surgeries, and it works out pretty good.
Yeah, I remember when we were still going out there. When Bella was still with us then, and when you started that, it was pretty cool.
I enjoy it every day.
I see your van around. All right, Dash.
Hi, I'm Ashley. I wanted to branch off of what Brandon offered. He gave you a very wide scope. I really want to narrow that down into functional tools, things that you can jot down on a Post-it and go Google later. So primarily in marketing, we're going to take the macro environment Brandon talked about, and we're going to try to utilize it, and we'll try to leverage it depending on what we offer and how we offer it to our prime target. And that's called the STP process in marketing: segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So it's kind of what we're going to talk about. I have 7 slides total. We'll take the S, the T, and then the P. The first thing that's important to kind of introduce is that there are tools, apps, websites, pretty much for every step of the process I'm going to talk about. That's my last slide, so I'll introduce some of them. Some of them are free that we can all access. Some of them are very expensive, but depending on where you are in your business plan or strategy, it could be something that you could use now or in the future. So the first thing that we need to do, in order to kind of, I think, succinctly and strongly identify exactly what kind of customer base we're dealing with, is to appropriately segment a market. And you can do that on any of the different dimensions listed on this board. Segmentation is important because, just like everybody sitting in this room, we're all sitting in the same room, but we all have varied interests, we all have varied lifestyles, we're all different ages, have different occupations. We would all have different feelings or emotions or cognitive reactions to the same circumstance. So when you take a heterogeneous mass, in order to make sense of it and in order to target yourself as a business and to be different and to be unique, you have to totally understand exactly who you're talking to. It can't be guesswork. The number one thing I think that happens when individuals are talking about starting something new is their failure to appropriately research and truly understand what customer base they are likely to deal with and what customer base they would like to deal with. Because oftentimes that's two different segments. Okay, so the effective understanding of things like how old our customers are will give us insight into what generation they belong to. You know, if you're talking about a millennial versus someone who's quite older, they're going to have very different perspectives on disposable income. I know I would pay Dr. Debbie a huge premium to come to my home. We have 5 cats and a dog. Good Lord. I don't even know anymore, like, who lives there and who doesn't. I run like a roadside motel. And so I would pay her a huge premium because to get 5 cats in a car, you see, would cost me a lot of money, right? As I had to replace my leather seats. So that to me would be a very necessary, very understandable, very doable additional cost if I paid a premium. Other people, however, may see that as unnecessary. They would rather do the legwork. They have a sort of a mindset. My mom's a bank teller, and she says that she still has folks who want to come and hand in their check on Friday because I guess they want to see her put that in the basket so they know it's going to go into their account. So as you get into demographics, I think it's where everybody starts segmenting. But it's okay to start demographically, knowing how old your customer base is, knowing if they are employed, knowing if they graduated college or what educational level they have. So how much can they understand? How much can they quickly process? All that's important, but it has to be step one of many steps. It cannot be your only step because I have classrooms all the time full of 18 to 24-year-olds, and man, they're different. I could make 3 or 4 different subsets when it comes to bottled water in a college classroom. So demographics, very good place to start. Never stop there. You can also look at psychographics, attitudes, interests, opinions. How do you feel about spending your spare time? What would you find fun on vacation? What magazines do you subscribe to? What websites do you normally visit to get advice, to get insight, to help you make a purchase decision? Okay, these are the questions we want to know the answers to from our customers or potential customers. Next, lifestyles. How do people spend their money and how do people spend their time? Huge generational gaps between lifestyle opinions, job choice, job tenure. People who were obviously the baby boomer era, they prefer to build careers within organizations. Tenure at organizations is incredibly important, and now we know millennials focus more on career and work-life balance, shall we say, and less on spending it with just one organization. That simply isn't important to them at all. Mobility, in fact, is more important. Next, benefits. Why do people want your product? Why do people want your service? What are they going to get out of it? And I think to understand the takeaway for your client is vital. You have to understand, even if you're developing an app, you have to know exactly why they're going to use your app. What do they want to get out of it that they can't get somewhere else? And then finally, usage and commitment level. This is going to be pretty easily trackable once you are in business for a while. You'll understand who your repeat customers are. You'll understand those people who have referred other clients to you as being loyalists. You can also understand who is in the market that you feel like, based on your past experience, can constitute an emergent user, someone you think is coming up. Okay, when you get an idea of who your emergent user, sorry, my voice is given. When you get an idea of who your emergent user base is, that allows you to help parlay them into new users. New users and the cost to recruit them and the ROI you get from a new user is very, very heavy. They're heavy to tote around. Loyal users are cheap. It's about a 20-to-1 ratio. Much cheaper to keep them than it is to get them. And if you've ever gone on a first date, you totally get that, right? You have to put a lot into getting that first date secured. If they say yes, right? And then it's a matter of a coin toss as to whether you're successful. If you have a good first date, you should keep it up. Don't get lazy. I think, as Brandon said earlier, a kind of a constant work at it.
Ashley, what you said.
Oh, thank you so much.
I don't know which one you wanted.
So when we're assessing segments, this is basic, and you've heard it probably a million times. I know we talk about it in class a lot, but and then I think it's just kind of common sense. But if you're looking at a segment and you're comparing 3 or 4, that's another good point. Never narrow down to one segment if you can help it, because that's where you'll put yourself in that tiny box Brandon referred to. So you can assess them based on size, but not just current size, potential size. And depending on the turbulence of your industry, always make sure that you adjust your potential size assessment. So if you have a very stable industry, you're a 3 to 4 year short-term company, which I don't even think these exist anymore, then you can look at growth to 3 or 4 years. If you're turbulent and you have a lot of competition, you have a lot of activity, then go ahead and adjust down to 6 months, okay? You can also look at ROI, how much it takes to get a client cost-wise, down to the penny, and then how much it takes to keep them. How did you get them, and so forth. What is everybody else doing? And whether or not you can successfully sustain multiple target markets. Once you kind of answered all this, I mean, I'm kind of a spreadsheet thinker, so if I could plot it all on a spreadsheet, I can then effectively compare how I would measure up in any of my given segment options. And then and only then would you start to effectively pair like segments who are unique enough to stand alone, but who are complementary enough for you to be able to serve with 1, 2, 3, 4 services that you are capable of providing. After we've segmented, then we're going to have to decide who we're going to go after. And I call this the buy-up method, but it's the bar interbrand method. Interbrand is who ranks the most valuable brands in the world every year. It comes out every year. So they basically say that you target based on 4 dimensions. One's relevance. Why are you in business? In marketing, we talk a lot about USPs. So it's your unique selling proposition. What is it you have, going back to the first date, that the other guy or the other girl doesn't have? What can you offer? What is your offering to the world? What is your offering to the client? Second, how are you standing out based on that unique proposition? I will say this, this didn't occur to me until now. Do you know about everything in marketing, everybody kind of thinks marketing is 2 things. 1, advertising, and 2, pricing. And pricing tends to be the thing people pick at. And they change it, and they increase it, and they decrease it, and they can't decide, so they should do a little bit of it. And they want to bundle, and they do all this stuff. We know we're customers, we get it. But the price is the easiest thing to manipulate. It's lazy man's strategy. So try not to differentiate based on price. Why? Because
anybody can duplicate.
Yeah, we've all been in towns where you see the gas stations going at it. Like they're going to sell for $1.96, and then the one across the street sells for $1.95, and then we go on until gas is like 92 cents, and people are getting reported to the federal government. It's great. But what you have to understand is that differentiation through price is easily imitable, and it's not sustainable. So differentiation needs to come from something that we offer that we can keep up, that other people have a hard time doing. It's why Steph Curry is a success. Right? Right?
Yeah.
He's not huge. He's a normal sized human being, and he's extremely successful in the NBA because he's something different. He's something that's unique. Yeah, he's given my tiny little 54-pounder hope, right? Basketball success. Next, credibility. Will your customers believe in this brand? And this should take you back to the slide before last, where we talked about the difference in a new user and an emergent user. Your new user has to just kind of believe in you and they're already using you, but an emergent user has to take a risk. You have to understand that risk, manipulate everything except price that you can get them to kind of bite the hook. Once they become a new user, then you can introduce them into the facets and the conversations leading to loyalty. But a lot of it has to do with your reliability and the fact, specifically for services businesses, that you're the same every single time. Either you're the same or you're better. Okay? And then finally, and Brandon, you kind of alluded to this, but it's your ability to remain relevant in changing times. So whatever market environment you got going on, whatever factors are going to influence your cost model, whatever factors are going to influence your market, just ask yourself how robust and how flexible is your offering or your brand, whatever, however you want to conceptualize it. So we've segmented. We've broken everything out. We've chosen a couple we kind of want to go after. So here we're going to go after them. Based on these 4 dimensions, we can assess how successful we think we might be. And then finally, we're going to position. Position is just defined as your, how people think of you, how your brand stacks up against competitors. So Dr. Debbie has told us that essentially she has like competitors in Knoxville and Memphis. So she automatically has a geographic strategy. She automatically has a USP that serves her well based simply on geography. No competitors around currently. So to position well, you have to know what you're good at and what you bring to the table. Teams in sports are highly functional when you don't really have any weak spots. And it doesn't mean that every player on that team is the best at everything. It simply means that they may have a very specific skill set. As long as they bring that every game, you're good to go. As long as you have all of the skills needed in that sport covered by somebody on the team, you're good. So your value proposition may be highly specific. Niche marketing is fine. But it has to be something that you can convince people that they need to invest in, either time-wise or financially. You let them know that through your brand promise. What is it that you stand for? People look at everything. They'll look at what you wear. They'll look at what you drive. Your van's adorable, right? It lets you know exactly what it is when you pass it on the street. They'll look at the machinery or the equipment that you're using. They'll note the friendliness of your staff on the telephone and how many rings it takes to get somebody to pick up the phone. So whatever it is you're doing and how you're leveraging the idea of your successfulness, your USP, has to come through in that brand promise. Gives you a platform to stand on. The promise is the gateway to the platform. And this goes back to how stretchable you are. You need to kind of be Stretch Armstrong here. You need longevity, or at least the hope of longevity, despite, and I think, Brandon pointed out earlier, despite whatever may pop up competitively, specifically. And then finally, you have to just kind of stand and deliver. My next slide talks about using the idea, whatever it is that you get your moment, and creating your USP. The creator of this brand, it's called Boston Brands, and the entrepreneur that started Boston Brands is Stanford grad. He started the company 10, 11 years ago. They're valued at over $90 million, and he started it. It's a artificial. It started as an artificial Christmas tree manufacturer because he goes into his mother-in-law. Everybody always picks on their mother-in-law. I mean, I don't, but some people do. So he walks into his mother-in-law's house, and her tree's bad. It looks artificial, and he'd only been raised in a household where they got a real tree. So he said, I'm going to try to make a Christmas tree that looks like a real tree. He went to China, and he developed technology and then started importing artificial, very real feeling, and they even have smell and texture and look of a real tree. And you may think, okay, whatever. The guy charges, they base at $8.99. And Christmas trees aren't cheap, right? We all know that. You can spend $400 or $500 for a nice tree at Walmart. So it's not like he's gouging anybody. They go all the way up, though, into the almost $10,000 area. Yeah, super nice. So he actually just had one very simple idea, but he did effectively partner with good manufacturers. He has good subs. He's able to deliver, and then he's able to help his customers accumulate over time multiple experiences. If you get one tree and you're happy, that's great. Guess what? They also sell wreaths and garland. And so once your tree is beautiful, then you wouldn't want the rest of your home to not have that same sentiment. So again, primary business and then secondary business. You don't feed a fish once, right? We have to constantly feed. You want that fish to get just as fat as he can, right? Before the cookout, this is the South. I wanted to leave y'all with tools because ideas I think are great, but if I were you, I would want to know exactly how does the rubber meet the road on this, and what am I supposed to leave here in Google to find out more information. If you need information on where your customers are and what type of people that, if you already have a current market, what do they like, what would they change, then run a small focus group. Try to randomly pick the people. Don't just get the people that are super happy, because they won't tell you anything. Okay? Try to pick a good variety of new and experienced customers. If you're thinking about launching a business and haven't yet, then don't just pull a bunch of your friends together for a concept test and say, hey, would you pay me to X or Y? So focus groups, you can do surveys. Qualtrics is fine. You can, if you have an email, someone's email, then you can send them an online survey. That's fine. You can interview. You can do some historical sort of analysis. What's happened? You can just blend in the environment and see what happens with other service providers in your area and in your market. So I got to kind of thinking when Brandon started about small business big data, because you hear big data, but if I was a small business owner, I don't necessarily know that I could just default to exactly what tools were accessible to me. You know, it's great to read about Pepsi and how they're so successful, but they have billions of dollars and billions of employees. So I wanted to point out some of these. Sorry, you'll just have to ignore what's on the bottom because that wasn't there when I put this together a while ago. So the first is Kissmetrics. This tracks your visitors for on specifically that would visit your website. One thing that I notice and that they've been researching and marketing for a while is people think because they can Facebook, like as just a person, that they can run their business completely and totally through Facebook, which may be okay and you may pass, but you're not going to be valedictorian with that strategy. Okay? Social media marketing is a complete and total mind investment. I don't know enough about it, but it allows you to infiltrate decision-making tools that people touch every day, the things that pop up, the things that they see. So Kissmetrics helps you, if you do have a website and you've taken that step beyond Facebook, and you work with somebody, or you've done it on your own, and you develop your website, Kissmetrics will help you track your user. They'll give you bounce rates. They'll give you metrics on how sticky your site is, people stay, and then your conversion rate, which is critical. If you're ever going to pitch to investors, one of the first things that they know, if you do anything e-commerce-wise, is what your conversion rate is, how many people you get to come to your site, and how many of those visitations result in a purchase or more information. It's vital. You have to know that. Second, it's Insight Squared. If you use any basic tool, business tool, computer business tool, QuickBooks, a lot of small businesses use that. Google Analytics goes into the next slide, but at least that's free. So if we're using any of these tools, Insight Squared takes that and it will aggregate the information found across all of those and give you a single service platform to help you make good decisions. Next is Google Analytics. Google Analytics made the list. Not only is it in the top 10 tools listed for small businesses, but it's free. Google Analytics is free. And Google Analytics tells you how long people spend on your site, how they got there, how they were routed there, what search terms are most efficient. Again, it can help you with conversion rates. It can also help you place better. If you're going to pay-per-click, it will help you choose better words and better search terms for your clients to be able to find you easier. If you have a lot of money and you're fascinated, you can check into IBM's Watson. Watson is basically a super genius computer that can help you make decisions. Watson's such a genius because he doesn't simply think artificially or on a very, very shallow surface. This takes everything that you can possibly feed into it and will match it with data found all over the world and help you come up with good solutions and good business options. It also has warehousing services, and then you can also buy data. So you can use that for good decision-making purposes. Because, I mean, it's conceivable that a small business would have 10 clients, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it is hard to make a gesture at a move or to understand the futuristic options available if you're basing something on 10 clients. So benchmarking 9 times out of 10 is going to have to come from outside your clientele. Lastly is TransLogic. TransLogic is a credit card based database that helps you take a credit card transaction and it will assign meaning to that. What else does the customer do? Anything that's proprietary or protected, obviously, but then you have other information that's available to you. Where do these people live? What else are they buying? How are they spending their money? How often do they spend over $200 on something? How many services are they paying for to support everyday life? How many luxury products are they investing in? So TransLogic pairs actual spending, not hypothesized spending or guessed spending, but actual transactions with meaning. These are all listed. There's a top 10 list too that you can Google. Google small business big data. They'll all pop up. Amongst others, there are others that pop up. I thought these will be pretty. This covers a wide variety. Sorry for the read at the bottom. Yes.
Does the TransLogic, that also covers scanner data too, right? Not just online. Oh, the
Exactly.
others are online. Or like Kismetrics, is that just for online purchases?
Where are we at? Kismetrics?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's website based.
Right.
And that's really, it's e-commerce, but you don't even have to necessarily be selling anything. And then the TransLogic has to do with in-store, online.
Okay.
Exactly. Anytime someone uses a credit card, then it's going to record that data. And there's a ton of data out there. Like there's the prison data. The prison data is geodemographic data. Anytime you go up in a retail scenario and someone says, "Okay, can I have your zip code?" They're pairing your transaction with your zip code in case you're not using a credit card. And I'm not really sure how that fits into TransLogic, but the prison data set is separate. And typically you can Google that, and I'm not even sure how much they charge or if they charge at all for that data. Depends probably on how specific you want to be. They may just break it out into industries and be very basic with it. And there are a couple other sites that you have on the list. There were a couple that paired your website traffic and with publicly available data, which I think is great because it was a free interface. So things like census data that could give you the number of people in an area or community that have a certain level of income, that own their own home, that have 2 dependents, and it can pair that with your customer base and your website traffic and help you make good decisions. That's all I have.
Anybody have any questions? We can both today. I find it interesting that we've had 3 different speakers, 4 tonight. I mean 4. They've had no interaction with each other, and they tell us the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that interesting? That it's sort of the same thing in a different view, but I mean it's basically the same thing. How to build your business. Dr. Kilburn talked about your looking for opportunities, your threats and your opportunities. And this Dr. Kilburn talks about your marketing and it's the same process. So I think it's great. I have a little token of our appreciation for you too. You probably